3 nights. That's how long he heard the scratching on his door. The 4th night, nothing, just silence. And then it spoke. No one in the village ever forgot the scream that came from Hussein al-Kabili's home that night. Some say it was the jinn. Others say it was Hussein himself. And by the time anyone understood what he had done, it was too late. But to understand why Hussein did what he did, and before we see what happened next, we have to go back. Not a few days, not even a few decades, but 800 years to the deserts of North Africa to understand the story of a book. A book that for centuries has terrified, seduced, and bewildered everyone who dared to open it. Some called it the most dangerous book ever written, and that was enough. The book was condemned, and soon it vanished, not from its existence, but from the public eye. The book went underground, copied behind closed doors, whispered about in low voices, and when it resurfaced generations later, it wasn't the same book. Whatever it had become, it wasn't just a book anymore. And the fear? It never left. It still lives on today, not just in whispers, but in Reddit posts and online forums. Hundreds of years after it was written, people are still asking the same questions. Is Shams al-Ma'arif just a book or something far more dangerous? I went deep into these online forums, reading stories, warnings, and confessions from people all around the world. The deeper I looked, the more I realized this book isn't just a relic of the past. It's a living legend still haunting those who dare to open its pages. So I decided to investigate. I wanted to find out what makes Shams al-Ma'arif so feared and so fascinating. As I went deeper, I came across many such stories, some recent, some centuries old, all shrouded in mystery. The story of Hussein is just one of them. Is it real or just legend? In the world of Shams al-Ma'arif, sometimes the line is impossible to draw. But whether true or not, legends like this one have survived for generations for a reason. Because they speak to something deeper, the unknown, the forbidden, the price of seeking knowledge not meant for us. Tonight, I'll take you through the origins, history, and evolution of the most feared book in the Islamic world. And then we will of course come back to the story of Hussein. Let's rewind all the way back to the 13th century Algeria, to a city called Buna. This is where a man named Ahmad al-Buni lived, a Sufi mystic, a philosopher, a mathematician. But what he wrote was unlike anything the Islamic world had ever seen. He was especially drawn to al-Huruf, the science of letters, the belief that Arabic letters held spiritual and cosmological power. To him, letters weren't just language, they were keys to the universe, to hidden forces, to the unseen. His work would later become the Shams al-Ma'arif, an encyclopedic text of magical formulas, cosmic diagrams, talismans, and invocations. Al-Buni never called it magic. To him, it was a science, a spiritual tool. He called it ruhaniya, the science of the soul. But this knowledge wasn't meant for everyone. Al-Buni intended the book for his closest disciples only, those spiritually prepared to handle its power. The secrecy was deliberate, meant to protect unprepared readers from misusing complex spiritual concepts, and to preserve the sanctity of the teachings. In al-Buni's world, some doors were not supposed to open unless you are truly prepared to understand and handle what lies beyond. One of the most distinctive features of Shams al-Ma'arif is its frequent use of magic squares, grids of numbers arranged so that every row, column, and diagonal adds up to the same total. According to the book, these weren't just numbers. They were tools used in talismans, amulets, and rituals. Some were meant to protect, others were designed to summon spiritual beings or even bring things like wealth, love, or healing. Each square was built using complex numerological formulas, often tied to the Asma al-Husna, the 99 names of Allah. Each name was thought to carry a unique spiritual energy, a kind of cosmic signature. And behind it all was something called al-Huruf, the science of letters. In this belief system, letters and numbers weren't just symbols. Each one was linked to a specific divine attribute. By placing them in the right pattern while reciting special prayers or invocations, the book claimed you could unlock hidden forces. But controversy came quickly. Even in its earliest form, Shams al-Ma'arif blurred the lines. Al-Buni assigned numerical values to divine names, linked them to planetary movements and letter patterns. To him, it was spiritual science. To Orthodox scholars, it looked dangerously close to using worship for worldly influence, crossing into forbidden territory. Al-Buni also believed the Arabic alphabet held hidden meanings, each letter with its own vibration and cosmic force. He arranged them in grids and magic squares, complex patterns thought to attract protection, healing, or power. To him, this was mystical exploration. To traditional scholars, it looked like sorcery. By the 14th century, the warnings began. Scholars like Ibn Taymiyyah condemned the book, accusing it of leading people astray, inviting jinn, and promoting shirk, the gravest sin in Islam. Shams al-Ma'arif was banned, burned, and driven underground, but it never disappeared. Instead, it survived in the shadows, copied in secret, whispered about in low voices. Over the next 3 centuries, from the 14th to the 17th century, Shams al-Ma'arif transformed, expanding far beyond what al-Buni had written. By the 1600s, the work had evolved dramatically. It had taken what many now call its final form, Shams al-Ma'arif al-Kubra, the great book of the Son of Knowledge. But by this point, it was no longer just al-Buni's voice. It had become a collective creation, with additions and alterations made by unknown mystics, scribes, and esoteric practitioners over generations. What started as a single manuscript had become a living document, constantly rewritten, reinterpreted, and reassembled. In today's form, Shams al-Ma'arif exists in 2 primary versions. Shams al-Ma'arif al-Kubra, the larger, more comprehensive edition. Shams al-Ma'arif al-Sugra, a shorter, more condensed version. I have spent a lot of time digging through this story, and the more I dig, the more I realize there are so many stories waiting to be told, and I want to tell them, but it takes time and effort. So if this kind of story speaks to you, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. It really does help me create better videos next time. Now, let's get back to it, to one of the most controversial parts of the entire book. Of all the rituals added to the book over the centuries, none became more feared than a section called Birhatia, known as the Ancient Oath. A section so cryptic and controversial, even many of the book's followers handle it with caution. To the untrained eye, it looks like nonsense. Long strings of strange, almost otherworldly words, words with no traceable origin. These are not prayers, not verses for spiritual reflection. They are invocations. Complex verbal formulas meant to be recited in specific ways, often at night, during certain planetary alignments, with incense burning and symbols drawn. And the purpose? That's where things get dangerous. Some say Birhatia calls upon jinn. Some even believe the words carry the names of beings far older than religion itself, ancient entities beyond comprehension. These words have no translation. They're meant to bypass the conscious mind and unlock doors most people can't even see. That's why Orthodox Islamic scholars have warned against it for centuries. In Islam, the unseen is not a playground. Worship is clear. The boundaries are defined. The Quran is the map. But Birhatia steps outside that framework. It uses unknown names sourced from untraceable traditions to try to tap into powers not meant for us. That's not mysticism, it's invitation, and you might not like who answers. That's what happened to Hussein al-Kabili. There is an entity now in his house which he did not expect. Hussein was not a sorcerer, he was a farmer. He worked long days, raised 3 kids, and struggled like everyone else. But that year, his fields dried. His daughter fell sick. And one night, an old man in the next town whispered a solution, a book that could call upon forces older than kings. Shams al-Ma'arif. He found a copy in a black market in Cairo. The first 3 nights, he followed a ritual designed to summon a jinn of healing. Burn incense. Draw the magic square while the moon is in Scorpio. The 4th night, scratching stopped. What happened next changed everything. The air went cold, and a shadow entered the room, followed by a scream that woke the entire village up. They found him at dawn, eyes wide, lips torn from screaming, his body untouched, but his mind gone. The walls of his room were filled with writing, not in ink, but something else, symbols no one could understand. His family said Hussein had been reading something, a book he brought back from an old market in Cairo, a book with no title on the cover, just a sun drawn in gold. That same night, the villagers threw the book into the fire. It didn't burn, so they buried it deep beyond the olive grove. No one speaks about it now. No one visits that part of the land. And Hussein, he never spoke again.